All right, my dear BIBLEin365 brothers and sisters, we have now embarked on the Italian prophet Malachi. Okay, he's not Italian, but he was a prophet, and quite the incredible prophet. Malachi, that's the right way to say it, Malachi had an incredible message. Now, I do want to say this. If you care about your country, which I guarantee you, if you are a part of BIBLEin365, which is, of course, Erica Kirk and her husband Charlie, then you care first and foremost about God and the things of God, and you undoubtedly care about your country. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing any of this. So if you do, this is going to be valuable because, of course, this is God's final message given to Israel in the Old Testament, who is walking openly and plainly in disobedience, right? This is the post-exilic period. Malachi is speaking, this is no joke, to a group of people who are continuing to rebel against God, and we can learn a thing or two. Yes, we're the United States of America. For most of you, there are many people watching us out of state. We do know that. I mean, not out of state, out of country. But this is particularly important because the prominence of what is being communicated in the message is valuable, okay? First of all, the situation is pretty extensive here, and if you really want to examine it, it starts off by understanding that the remnant has returned from captivity, right? We are around 538 BC, but under the prophetic ministry of Haggai and, of course, Zechariah, which we talked about, they rebuilt the temple. And, of course, 60 years later, Ezra comes in to sort of help reestablish the nation, right? That's when Nehemiah comes in and helps to rebuild the wall and so on and so forth. Now, as we enter into Malachi's time, right, we are sort of in a place where they are removed from Babylon about 100 years, and they sort of have been cured by sort of the exile of their adultery, right? And so that's kind of been gone, but they were still prone to neglect worshiping God and taking care of God-centered priorities. They weren't taking care of the temple. They weren't doing the things that they needed to do. So, of course, the Jews, who, of course, have been favored by God above all nations and continue to be favored by God, were told, you cannot get away with this because I'm not done with you. A Messiah is yet to come, and these are the things that you need to learn. So he goes and he speaks about several areas that they were neglecting. When we get into chapter 1, God speaks about his contempt. And of course, I would probably say anger is a very good picture of the fact that they did not treat the temple sacrifices the way that they were supposed to as being holy, right? And then in chapter 2, he condemns them for the fact that they were making all of these sort of marriage type relationships with other pagan nations, and this was a bad thing. By the way, this was perhaps the greatest reason why Solomon had collected so many wives back during his period, because he didn't collect wives because he had this crazy fetish for women and so on and so forth. He collected wives because the exchange of wives is what you did when you made a treaty with other nations, and God hated both of those things, right? He was always taught us to be a one-woman man, right? And Solomon didn't follow that. And of course, the people during the time of Malachi were not also listening to that and seeking to make treaties, which of course would eventually bite them in the rear. And so when we get into chapter 3, God begins to shift the focus, and he talks about the coming judgment of God, which in some cases were things that we have not yet seen and we will see very soon. And in some cases, things that had happened in the past, okay? And then one other thing we should talk about in Malachi, actually there's a few other things, but one other thing is the subject of tithing. The description of the importance of giving to God is given here to the Jews, and the principle applies to us. And we learn a lot about that, and perhaps some of the greatest documentation of God blessing people as a result of their tithing comes from right here. And this is God literally challenging the people to give to him and see what happens, right? And then God addresses the issue of the wrong type of skepticism against God being able to fix a nation. And by the way, we are seeing that being done right now. Even in the Republican Party, we're watching skepticism where the mentality is, let's use the methods of the left and the ideals of the left to be able to gain power and control things. And they don't listen to the idea that God wants to do the work that he wants to do supernaturally, and our job is to get out of the way and let God do it, right? And so the way we do politics needs to change. We're going to learn a little bit about that in Malachi. And then when we get to chapter 4, we again are going to speak about the coming of the day of the Lord, which refers to the judgment of God that we have not yet seen on this earth, represented by a series of things that we are going to learn about, and you have probably already have learned about in going through the book of Revelation. So this is going to be a rich book. You are going to love it. It's going to blow your mind, and you're going to be absolutely blessed as you study it. So you are in for an amazing experience. Again, as usual, I've got the full teaching through Malachi, jameskaddis.com, calvarychapelsignalhill.com, the Calvary Chapel Signal Hill app. You can go to lightonthehillradio.com. All of those places, you'll find the full teaching, and you'll be able to get educated more in the Word of God and be blessed. All right? Love you guys. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight.